for coming tonight, who traveled both near and far to be here. I'd also like to thank the Office of Alumni Relations, the Department of Dance, the Living Learning Communities, and the Student Dance Organization who had the idea for the panel tonight and really saw it through to fruition. For our audience tonight, we're going to save some time at the end for questions, and then there will also be a little meet and greet right outside Hartwell with some food as well. So if you want to ask questions to our alumni panelists here, you can, or you can also go and speak with them one-on-one afterwards. I'm going to introduce our panelists now. When I say your name, if you guys wouldn't mind just giving a little wave to the audience so they can connect name and face, that would be great. I am not going to give their bios, only because I'm hoping that through this conversation they will kind of naturally be revealed, and also they're in the program. So we have Nicolette Depass, who earned her BS here, Kristi Faulkner, MFA, Kelly Johnson, MFA, Deb Lipa-Ciotta, MA, and BA, Eddie Murphy, I have BS, Lindsey Rozzi, MFA, and Mark Schmidt, MFA. And again, there's mics kind of spread throughout, and hopefully they're turned on. And then, so we can just pass them around, and then again, if you ever feel like you have something you want to say, just jump on in. So, Nicolette, I'm going to start with you. Right now, we are all, the majority of us in this room, students. We're a little bit over halfway through our academic year here, so we're kind of in the thick of student life, but I'm wondering if you could start to talk about professional life and that transition from student life to professional life. So I'm curious, what did the first 6 to 12 months look like for you after graduation?
I was in a blur. Oh. Yeah. That's exactly how I felt. Right. While I think that Brockport did a great job in preparing me physically, emotionally, it's just life. You're out there and you have to make it work. It's all on you. I was very fortunate that I graduated on a Sunday, and Monday morning I was in the studio, professional dancer in a professional company. So with that in mind, here I was learning a brand new technique, being surrounded by people. So I didn't have the safety net of my advisors, my teachers, my friends. So it was all on me, right? And that is pretty much what you guys should start preparing. Really focus in and examine what you want and how bad you really want it. And know that you have to put in the work to get the results, right? And when it gets really, really hard, just dig down deep and say, I really want this. And if you don't want it, then you should find something that you really want. But the passion has to be there. The commitment has to be there. And only you can decide that you have it and you want it and you're going to give it your all to get what you need to get. Right? So, but, bear in mind, so take advantage of your teachers, your friends, and the safety net that's here. But eventually you're going to be like a baby where you don't cruise along with the furniture. You're going to have to walk from A to B without any kind of safety net. But you can do it, right? Focus in. It's all on you. We're all rooting for you, and we want you to come back and be right up here and tell the next generation how you made it.
Kelly, can I ask you the same question about your transition from Brockport to professional life, kind of what that first year looked like and how you navigated through it?
Sure. So I graduated in '03 with a BFA, and I felt that I needed to go to New York City. I just needed to go. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I needed to go. So my boyfriend and I went, and we were down there for about 2 years, and then realized that we were going to come back to this area. So came back to this area, and I decided I needed more. So New York City didn't give me enough. I needed more. I knew I needed more to do what I wanted to do, which was to choreograph and to teach. So I came right back to Hartwell Hall, and I saw a lot of familiar faces from my undergraduate time here, but I saw a lot of new faces too. And I had to have really a new attitude, I think, transitioning from being an undergrad to a grad student. They're very different. So after I graduated from here with an MFA in 2009, it was kind of a smooth transition, actually. I was teaching as an adjunct prior to graduating. So by the time I graduated, I'd already had like a semester or two of being an adjunct at a local community college. So that transition really helped me, I think, and put those kind of 2 semesters, if you will, under my belt a little bit. I knew how to write a syllabus. I knew sort of what I wanted to be, right? But not really, right? Like you're always figuring that out. And so that transitioned me into working at another university, and then another one. And then before I knew it, I landed the job that I have now, which is at Hobart William Smith Colleges in Geneva, New York. So yeah, it felt pretty smooth, but that certainly wasn't without the help of the faculty here. I got a knock on I was teaching here as a TA, and I got a knock on my door from Darwin Prelow, who was the chair at the time. And the knock was really, firm. And I was like, oh my God, Darwin, what? And she said, I have an opportunity for you. I said, oh, awesome. So I went to, on my first teaching position. And I was totally scared. But I also felt prepared at the same time. I mean, scared because it's new, you know what I mean? That I think, that excitement I think is always good to have. But I felt prepared. And I felt that I had support if I needed it. I'll put it that way. I felt that I had support if I needed it. Did I answer that?
Yes. I'm a little curious to ask you guys when you knew the specific professional direction you were going to go in, whether it be teaching or dancing, choreographing, or a mix of all 3. Eddie, could you talk a little bit about that, how you knew or when you knew where specifically you wanted your career in dance to go?
Yeah. I knew, when I was an undergraduate here, I did an awful lot of choreography, and I knew that I was really interested in choreography, much more so than performing, although I did enjoy performing. So I kind of had an idea that I wanted to choreograph and create dances. And I had an opportunity. It was really crazy for me because nothing ever went the way, it didn't go easy. I started dancing and I left here and went to Arizona because I had an opportunity there. And then there I had to bake donuts in this donut shop till like 4 in the morning and then go into rehearsal at 8. And I was working with a really creative woman who has since died, but she was one of the most amazingly creative women I ever worked with. And she also, there was a professor here who really thought that I had a gift for choreography. He was always supporting me. And this woman also kind of saw that spark, and she started really mentoring me and teaching me how to develop words and poetry and other things. And she also taught me how important it is just to observe what's going on in my everyday life, because dance is going to be a form of communication for me. So I always knew I had wanted to choreograph, but it was always something that ended up costing me money and time instead of making a living for me. I always had to do other things until I finished my graduate degree in education and taught school. And at that point, then I had the finances to choreograph, but I no longer had the time. So it's always been a hard balance for me, but it was something that from the time I was very young, I had a lot of passion to do. So I knew right away that that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I always did it. I never gave up. I just kept going. Does that answer that?
You're all doing a great job. Deb, can I ask you the same question about when you knew the specific kind of professional direction you were interested in going to?
I remember in high school, I asked my high school dance teacher, I went to a performing arts school, if I could teach, if she would teach me how to organize a lesson plan so I could teach little children creative dance. So she sparked my interest in teaching dance. And when I came to Brockport, I just kept taking, I wanted to perform, and I performed a lot, but I always kept taking methods courses. And then after I finished my bachelor's in dance, I did a transition year at SUNY Fredonia, where I was a grad assistant, earned graduate credits, worked with their dance department, came back to Brockport, and wanted to do my master's in dance education. And again, I was a graduate assistant, kept taking all the methods courses and things like that. And then right after school, I started substitute teaching in public schools that had dance, or substitute teaching anything. And then that became, one thing led to another, and I got a really beautiful job at Performing Arts School in Buffalo. And now I'm a teacher at Tapestry Charter School, kindergarten through 4th grade there. So I always knew I wanted to teach.
So we've talked a little bit, or touched on some of us already, about specific experiences that you all have had at Brockport. Lindsey, can I ask you about, I don't know, specific experience or skills that you feel you acquired at Brockport that then helped you in your kind of career in dance post-graduation?
Yes. When I was here, I actually got my degree in English literature, and I decided my senior year, much to the dismay of my parents, that I just wanted to dance. I had tried many times to quit, and I just couldn't. I had to dance. So when I came here, I kind of had to bridge my degree. So I had to take a couple undergraduate courses in conjunction with my graduate courses. And Suzanne Newman told me at the time, if you're not going to go out into the professional world and be part of a company, you need to get your MFA. So I listened to her. And when I reflect now on all the experiences that I had while I was here, I can truly say that I don't regret going out into, or not going out into the company atmosphere, because it gave me such a rounded, open experience. I feel like I became so much more receptive to accessing dance, because I was, I grew up in a studio. I was a ballerina. That's all I was. And when I came here, I actually left a dancer, and I loved everything. So I feel like it really rounded me out as a person, as a teacher, and opened my eyes and my mind and my heart to so many possibilities as a dance instructor.
Okay, so show of hands from the panelists. Who here post-graduation moved to a new city? Okay, so we have 3 who moved. Can you guys, I think like moving to a new city would be so terrifying. Like, I can't even, I just think, what if there wasn't a Wegmans? Like, how would I survive? I don't know what I would do. So can you guys talk to us? I don't believe you, but okay. But how do you navigate that, moving into a new city where you, whether you know people or you don't, and then trying to find on top of that, on top of the new place, you're also trying to kind of jumpstart your career in dance?
I got this one. So I graduated in 2009, and I ended up moving to Detroit. And I love Detroit. Detroit is really fantastic, but I hated it when I first moved there. Because, exactly what you're saying. How do you build a life there? I was not from Detroit. I moved there because my partner lived there and had a job there. And I thought, Detroit sounds cool. It's got some good things going on. I'll check it out. I'll see what's going on. And I got there, and I was almost paralyzed because I knew nobody. My friends were here or in New York City. I didn't know where to take class. I didn't know where the resources were. I didn't know where to find any dancers that weren't affiliated with the university and already, busy with university lives. So I had a really rough time. I actually didn't dance for about 1.5 years after I moved there, and it was actually a really rough time for me because I didn't know where to take class. I was doing yoga and I was doing other things, but not dancing, and it was really, I felt like something was missing. I was still working for an arts organization, which was actually proved to be incredibly helpful. So I do recommend, if you are looking to move, find whatever local arts organizations exist where you're moving. I was really fortunate to get a job doing development and marketing stuff, pretty much anything, that had to do with the development and marketing for this organization, and learned a lot of things that I was then able to apply to my company when I started that. And so what ended up happening is I just had to say, I don't know where people are, I don't know where studios are, but I'm going to make it happen. And moving to a new city, especially a city that you're not familiar with, or a place where access to resources seems really limited, you really have to love what you're doing. You really have to believe that what you're doing matters, and you have something to say if you're a choreographer, that you have something to convey if you want to be dancing, that you have something to give if you want to be teaching. And you really have to just be resourceful and make it happen. And I had to kind of lower my standards a little bit, you know. I don't need the gorgeous sprung floor studio. This film studio with a wooden floor will work just fine. And, you know, and I think I ended up growing a lot as an artist and as a person because I was forced to make it happen. That's something that I don't think you really learn when you're in the cocoon of school.
No, we have spaces
Yeah.
here, and we have dancers here, and we know when our next show is going to be, and when our
Yeah.
next yeah.
And you have class. Oh my God, you have class every day. A lot of times of day. Like it's really, yeah. You know, you don't have to search to find that good teacher that exists in the city, the one, you know. So I mean, it's something that really hit me hard. Like, wow, I can't believe I took that for granted, that I just had space available, that I just had class available. But I think, you know, I would recommend to anybody out here, if you have an opportunity to produce your own show outside of this little building, do it. Because it is such a great experience. And it will help you if you decide to move to Detroit.
I didn't move to a different city, so I moved back to.
But New York, I mean, I feel like a lot of undergrads have New York in their mind.
Yeah.
Did you move back to New York?
Yeah, I moved back to Brooklyn to my pre-war rent-stabilized apartment. But I mean, what?
So I guess, how do you navigate the dance scene in New York then? How is that different than?
Well, I mean, I think similar to Kristi being in Detroit, you still have to be resourceful. Yes, you do have access to lots of great choreographers and performance spaces or performance opportunities, teachers. But if you're on a budget and you're a choreographer, you have to find a sound designer or maybe a set designer or someone to make your costumes. So there's a lot of great ways. Because it's such a large city and you're always crossing the paths of many people, it's also a great place to network and be resourceful. So, yeah, you're always having, I guess, that in the back of your head, maybe when you're at a party or if you're taking class, you like the way that someone moves, and yes, you might approach them to work on a project. But yes, you still have to be resourceful, and you can do things. I mean, people complain about New York being expensive, but it is possible to live in New York and do things in an inexpensive way. I rehearsed at an amazing studio in Bushwick, Brooklyn, for $8 an hour.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's pretty amazing. And then the other space that I use at Gina Gibney near Union Square, which has, I mean, beautiful wood floors, and it's near, I don't know if you know New York, but Broadway, 19th Street. It's just a beautiful area. You can get a NISCA grant, so $10 an hour for rehearsal space. But you have to seek those things out.
Yeah. Kelly, I want to ask you, so you're a professor at Hobart and William Smith Colleges, and for any profession, and also for anyone here who is teaching at a college, usually an interview is typically required. So what is your advice for anyone who's looking for a job in higher ed? And then can you talk a little bit about that interview process and what that is like?
Be yourself. Be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. It's not the place to try to be like anybody else. It's not the moment to try to be like that person next to you. It's not. You really want to be yourself. I also would say to kind of know going into any sort of interview process, right? I think is to go through a period of self-reflection a little bit, right? And to first know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And rather than denying that your weaknesses exist, allowing them to exist, and knowing that they're just as much a part of you as the strengths are, but that they're there and you acknowledge them and there's something that you're working towards. I personally think that speaks way more than someone coming in saying, I'm perfect, just the way I am. No, you're not, and we all know it, right? We're human beings. So I think acknowledging what it is that you bring to this place, right? So, for example, I'll just veer off just a little bit. Where I teach, the dance department has existed for a lot longer than my 5 years, right? However, over the last 5 years, I've been arranging and developing and coordinating a world dance curriculum that did not exist at the colleges prior to me being there. Faculty want it, they know it's something that the students need, but they don't do that. That's not what they teach, right? So when I came in, that was like flag. I was like, I can do this, this, and this. Ooh, we like that. That's something that we don't have here. We're interested in that. What can you do with that? Oh, well, and over the course of the last, 4 years, I've been designing courses that they've never offered before. And now we're looking at this upcoming year having a world dance curriculum that is centered in dance of the African diaspora, which is a first-time thing, which is really, really great. So that's why I'm saying be who you are, because I could have gone in and been, I'm just a modern dancer, but I'm not just a modern dancer, right? And I do teach modern there as well. I teach a fusion style. But I really think going for honesty is, in my opinion, the best way to go about progressing forward in any situation, any job, any audition, being really honest. I mean, when you're in an audition, and you see somebody who's really giving it, right? Like, so what, they're on the wrong leg, right? But they gave it, you're more interested in watching them, you want to, right? So always being honest and genuine, I think is really important.
So I want to talk to Kristi and Mark for a second. So we have Mark Schmidt, Kinetic Theater, we have Kristi Faulkner Dance. How did you guys decide about having your own company was the correct path for you? And then can you guys talk about some of the challenges that you've experienced, but also successes in having your own company?
Yeah. Okay, there's a little story behind the company. When I first moved back to New York, I was performing for different choreographers. I did the Bill T. Jones workshop when I was in grad school, and I met my friend Eric Montes, who dances for the company. He is also a choreographer, so when I moved back to New York, I was dancing for him. And then he connected me with a friend of his who was also a former Bill T. Jones Art Museum dancer who was choreographing at the time, and I worked for him. His name is Malcolm Lowe. And it was a great experience, and shortly after I started working for another project with a different choreographer. And it was a project that I actually got dropped from because the choreographer, in her eyes, I wasn't quite getting the technique or what they were interested in, what they were doing. It was a big blow to my ego, and I had to take a little break from modern dance. I had a period where I was like, screw modern dance, do something else for a while. But I think it was a blessing in disguise, because it was kind of like pushing the baby bird out of the nest. And I realized after a while of being away from taking class and performing that I really did want to choreograph. I mean, I had my MFA in choreography and performance, but I hadn't quite arrived at the point where I was investing myself in that. So I started making dances about 2 years ago, and then in October I decided that it would be a lot easier if I were a nonprofit, or I'm actually sponsored under a nonprofit arts organization called Nicolette Depass. If you ever think about starting a company, look them up, they're great. And I'll tell you this, one of the reasons is funding. So, it takes a lot of money to make a dance, By the time you pay, if you pay your dancers and your rehearsal space, and I like to use a sound designer just because I like making original soundscapes. it can add up. So for me, now I can accept those tax-deductible donations from my wealthy clients in my personal training business, and it works. So yeah, I think that was the impetus.
And Kristi, what about you?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to have a company. Kind of headstrong, know what I want, and being, I just always had a desire to create things. So having a company was definitely like the long-term goal. Even the entire time I was in grad school here, I knew having a company one day, that's what I wanted to do. And then reality set in, and you go, okay, I have to find dancers. Where's the dancers in this new city I moved to? I need space. Where's the space in this new city that I moved to? And once I made the commitment and I said, I'm just going to do it, I held an audition, and oh my God, 15 people showed up. And I was so excited, because I only needed 2. And it was really awesome. Yeah, and you know, I think that was a big lesson to myself, that I was waiting for like the conditions to be right, and the conditions are never right. If you want to do it, you just need to do it. And so I just did it, and then things started to snowball from there. I, like Marcus, I also am fiscally sponsored with Fractured Atlas. Excellent organization. You can get tax-deductible donations. They offer, you know, look into them. You can do Indiegogo campaigns if you're not familiar with it. It's online fundraising that's also tax-deductible. You also have, the best part is access to webinars that teach you about grant writing and all kinds of things. And you have a staff that's available to you to like look your stuff over, right? Like, you still need proofreading even if you're not in school. You need it. So the Fractured Atlas thing was fantastic in financially helping me. But I think the biggest challenge that I came upon was, I think, just really believing in myself and accepting like that what I had to offer was worth it. Because you know, I moved to a city where nobody moved like me. People didn't do what I did, and I tried for a real hot second, I'm talking 3 rehearsals, to be in this other company, and it didn't fit, it didn't feel right. And I knew it, I was trying to make it work, and I thought, you know, I knew this is not where my heart is. I don't want to be dancing for another person. I want to be making my own work, and I want to be doing something that really matters and something that means something to me. And so once I accepted that, once I really like believed that it was worth it, and that, you know, like Kelly said, be yourself. You don't have to look like this other company just because they're getting funding. You'll get funding too, and people will come to your shows too, because you are so honest about who you are as an artist and who you are as a person. So, yeah.
Do you want to talk about your company? Oh, this one?
Mine's a little different. I have a children's modern dance company, and I really believe that young children can perform beautiful modern dance works and works from dance history as well. So I have a creative dance school called Creative Dance for Children, and the company's 5 years old, and it just was an extension of my school. We do not have auditions. The children are ages 7 to 18. It's a multi-age company, and recently we just did 3 pieces from Isadora's work, so they're learning about dance history as they're doing it. I bring in guest artists to set works on the company, because I'm not the best choreographer, so that wasn't but I'm good at bringing people together, and then it's called playing, and the children create their own works, which they love. I love seeing 7-year-olds creating with 18-year-olds, and I modeled my school after other schools other companies that I saw when I'm a member of DAISY, Dance of the Child International, and there's a lot of modern dance children's companies across the country. And the one that I sort of model mine after is Anne Green Gilbert's Kaleidoscope. And I called her I emailed her. We talked a lot before I started my company. She gave me a lot of suggestions and feedback. And and I think it's important too for children to give back to their community and educate other people in our community about modern dance. So it's a, yes.
Deb, I did want to talk to you and Nicolette about arts advocacy for children and education. You specifically work in the public schools, so can you talk a little bit about arts advocacy and fighting for dance to be in school, like public schools and everyday schools?
I'm very blessed to be in a school that was founded by a dancer. It's Tapestry Charter School, and one of the founders was a dancer and a choreographer. So we've always had dance in our school, but I always feel like I'm always pushing for new ideas and exciting projects for our school. And I believe every child should dance. So I'm very blessed in the school that I'm at that all kindergarten through 12th graders have dance education. That's why I'm here today to also spread the word to you that you could be a dance educator and you can help bring dance to children, whether it's in a public school, but also at my private school. So I teach in a public school, but through my private school, I'm also a dance educator. Children come from all over Western New York to come to my private school because modern dance and creative dance is a hard thing to find in our areas. Does that help?
I totally agree in having dance in schools. Even though I grew up as one of those who had to go to a local dance studio on Fridays and Saturdays to take my dance classes. But I do believe that every child should have a dance class. It not only teaches, it just teaches a lot about awareness of the body, the space around them, working with others, following directions, music, tempo, math, count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my two sons, they dance, and it's very wonderful to see the joy that I feel when I perform, and to see a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old experience that same joy. And it's also a creative outlet. You know, we all have feelings that we need to let out, and sometimes if you're upset, once you start moving, you can find that, oh, okay, that feels much better. I got it out through whatever is necessary. As a teacher, as a mother, as a performer, dance is often the first one, to get this started, but it's a very integral part of our development, our growth, and we can make this world a better place by just dancing. Flash mobs. Let's just get up and start dancing. Yeah, but definitely, we're all for it.
Lindsey and Eddie, so Lindsey, you currently are and have been the owner and director of the Brockport School of Dance and Performing Arts for the past 10 years. Eddie, you have the Drumcliff School of Irish Dance and the Drumcliff Dance Project. I'm curious, how did you guys end up owning these schools of dance or owning your own business? And then similar to the question that I had for Mark and Kristi, I mean, what are the challenges in owning your own business, but also the successes, just so we can also hear great positive stories as well.
The Irish dance thing is, it kind of fell in my lap. My father and mother are both Irish born. My mother comes from a very, very desolate northern part of Ireland called Donegal. It's up in the North Country. And she had very little exposure to modern America or modern life as that. So when I was a little guy, my father was teaching my sisters how to Irish dance, and they were awful. And I was I remember it. I have a really good memory, which is unfortunate because it's one of my downfalls. I remember things I don't really want to remember. But anyways, my father was teaching them, and I just got up off the couch that I was sitting on with my millions of brothers and sisters piled in that back room, and just did the steps that my father was trying to teach out to the kitchen. And I grabbed something off the table to sneak and eat it. And my father came running out, and I thought I was in trouble because I got caught stealing food, but he actually wanted me to start dancing. So I started Irish dancing at a very young age. And that culture, that family that I was born into, just bred that. So by the time I was here at Brockport, I already kind of had a pretty good reputation as a strong Irish dancer, as a competitor and as a performer. So that followed me everywhere. And that has, even though I dabble in a million different forms of dance, that has always been my safety net. When I was in Arizona working on my graduate degree in dancing with the Modern Company out there, I was doing Irish dance for an Irish dance school out in the area that wasn't a strong area. I also got arts and education money to do Irish dance in public schools in Tucson. There was no Irish dancer out there at the time. Then when I moved back to New York State, I did that to teach high school. And I'm going to say something about teaching in a minute, but because I've got this really strong point of view on teaching. But anyways, so I came back here to teach Irish dance once a month for this older man who was retiring. And at that time, I was teaching high school, and I was living in New York, and I was living in Albany, and doing modern dance here and there, and all over the place. And that old man eventually retired. I inherited his school. I didn't want it, but I just kind of found myself in the place of where I was teaching 6 or 7 very talented young people. And I almost felt if I didn't do that at that time, then I would have been deserting these young kids that I had been working with. So that fell into place. So I was able to make a living teaching school and teaching Irish dance. Then River Dance happened, and I started making lots of money. So then I quit teaching my full-time teaching job. I taught in Greece Central Schools, and after I quit teaching the job, of course, 6 years later, River Dance wasn't so famous anymore. My enrollment went down. I didn't want to go back to teaching school because one thing about teaching school, I loved teaching school when I taught it, but if you're going to go into teaching, and I really believe this with my heart and soul, you're going to go into teaching, make sure that you have a passion for teaching when you're doing it. You shouldn't be teaching to pay your bills and dancing on the side. If you're going to dance, then dance. If you're going to teach dance and dance, make sure you have that passion for teaching, because it's really important to me. When I burned out teaching special ed, it was really important to me that I stopped teaching special ed. They were emotionally disturbed kids, and the last thing they needed was a burned out teacher. They need the creative energy. So if you're really going to teach, make sure you love it. If you want to do all other things, do all other things. But if you're going to teach, make sure you love it. So anyways, the business fell into place. Then I started crossing all different forms of dance. Then the company came. And now the business actually subsidized the company. And because of the business, but I'm terrible at business. Absolutely terrible. I have a friend who takes care of all my business work, and you need to have someone do that if you're bad at business. Believe me, I am. But right now I'm able to have my own space in Rochester. And not only have I been able to have my space, and I'm going to brag about this for a little bit, but I've also been able to let my space be used by several modern dancers in town who don't have a space. And I let them use it free of cost because I've been there. I know what it's like. And my space is sitting vacant from 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. There's no reason in the world why another artist can't use it as long as they respect the space. But I mean that about teaching.
I came into my ownership of my studio while I was getting my degree. I was teaching at the studio I began dancing at, and when I finished my degree, I continued to teach there. And then when the owner was ready to move on, I basically took over for her. So it was a good opportunity at a good time. However, when I did so, it was right when the economy was going south. This was about 2004. And to reinforce what I said about loving teaching, I feel like if you teach under your own terms, like in a studio, you are so many more things than just a teacher. I am impassioned not only to share my love of dance with so many younger people, but I am impassioned to be a second mother to them, a psychologist, a friend, someone to just make them forget, all the bad things that went on during that day. And I personally love that as much as I love teaching and dancing myself. And I also think that's just as important as well. Owning your own studio, there's so much flexibility available to you. But like I said again, there's a lot of things that you can't control either. And when you're faced with those things, sometimes there isn't a good answer. So you have to, I guess, make the best of it. So.
Kelly, I want to come back to you. So I feel like Brockport tries to cultivate students who are not only dancers and performers, but also effective communicators, speakers, and writers. And I know from reading your bio, your continuing research deals with the development of a modern dance technique that speaks of readiness, sensuality, and rhythmic sensitivity. So can you talk about the importance of continuing your research post-graduation and then how that's influenced areas of your dance life?
Yeah. Yes, it's okay. So I think, and I'm sure just like several of us up here, we have a way that we communicate when we dance, right? So we have a style, and some of us do other people's styles, and some of us want to make our own style, right? And they're both equally valid, but very different, right? So I've been really fortunate, I think, to have really wonderful mentors throughout my whole journey here that who had a style that spoke about them, and spoke about their experiences, and it spoke about their values in dance. I was fortunate enough to work with Clyde Morgan. I was fortunate enough to work with Bill Evans. Both two very different men, move very differently, right? But the way that they move tells me a little bit about who they are. So I knew that I wanted to make work that was not necessarily autobiographical, but that was kind of about the things that just like what you said, Eddie, values, right? Shows the things that I believe in, and is able to communicate that through dance to an audience. I think that I've been really fortunate as an educator so far on my journey as an educator to be able to utilize the students that I have to really help me shape the craft that I'm wanting to be, right? So Kristi said she knew right away she wanted to have a company. I knew right away I wanted to have a vocabulary, right? So that vocabulary speaks of people that came long before me, right? So I'm interested in creating something new that speaks to me, but also to the journey of where I came from, right? So it's got a little African, it's got a little, Caribbean dance. It's definitely got some release technique. There's elements of improvisation. There's hints at hip hop, because that's just musically where my brain might be in that moment. But I like to kind of mash it all up like a big gumbo, and call that this technique that I'm working on creating. And I've been really fortunate to have been able to experiment and test that out on students in technique class, in modern class, and then let that kind of bleed over into our ensemble experience, which is similar to your rep and lit experience here. So I think I've been really fortunate to have those opportunities, and also opportunities to collaborate with fellow alum. Rochester's got a lovely little thing going on right now, and being able to be in that studio of yours, Eddie, with fellow alum, and perform at festivals, local festivals, is really wonderful. And so the learning is still happening. Please don't ever stop. Don't ever stop. Keep the learning happening all the time.
So we have a lot of undergrads here who are trying to decide what the next stage of their life will be, and I know some people are starting to think is grad school something I'm interested in? So for those of you who attended grad school, can you talk about what was the impetus that made you decide grad school is for me? What were the deciding factors leading towards grad school? So Kristi went to grad school.
I went to grad school. I did go to grad school. It is on. I know. No, I heard a click. I turned it off. No. Yeah. So I actually came to Brockport immediately after graduating from undergrad, which was kind of odd because a lot of people in the 2009 group did as well. But my reason for it was I just didn't feel ready. I didn't feel like I knew enough. When I left my undergrad program, I got degrees in both dance and theater from Bowling Green State University, which coincidentally I'm teaching at now. But I just felt like when I left there, I had so many ideas, and I just needed more time to really figure out where my place was, because I knew where I wanted to go, but I needed more coaching to get there. And so I felt like grad school was what I needed to do to achieve that. A place where, you know, I could really investigate what the heck is going on in the dance world, but have some, you know, not just be thrown to the wolves in New York City, but, you know, have mentors that could push me into, you know, interesting directions and expose me to opportunities that I probably wouldn't have taken advantage of had I not come here.
Yeah, so for me, my journey through dance is probably a little different than some of the people on the panel. I didn't grow up dancing, but I always loved it. I had an interest in it. I loved moving. I played sports growing up, but I always loved to dance, and I was okay at it. I thought I was pretty good. So as an adult, I started taking classes, professional classes, at the age of maybe 24, I think, 25, and started to investigate. I had been going out to house music clubs and was learning. I kind of knew that form, was very familiar with that, and even took some formal classes. We can actually, in New York, you can take house dance classes. And so that was interesting to realize, like, oh, there's a technique to this, and people teach it. But a friend of mine who was a professional dancer had suggested to me to look at ballet and modern. And so I don't know how, but I got accepted to this program at Alumni for 1 year, an intensive program to learn Horton and classical ballet. You know, imagine a 25-year-old, you know, taking house dancer taking classical ballet for the first time at 25. Very humbling experience. So I finished that program, and I thought, well, okay, if I want to keep doing this, I guess the next step would be to go back to school. And so I remember getting on my computer and looking around at schools that had MFAs in Brockport. I thought I would be getting a BFA because I thought, well, they're not going to take me. I mean, I don't have an undergraduate. My undergraduate degree is in liberal arts from the New School. So yeah, it was me making this decision after being in that intensive at the Ailey School to, well, if I'm going to do this, this is the way to go. And so it was. I was thankful for Brockport for accepting me. That person, like, they're not going to take me. But it was the best decision I could have ever made, and I can't tell you how happy I am that my life is now, dance is, it's a part of my life. Every day of my life is somehow revolves around dance.
So we're going to start to wind things down a little bit. I'm hoping to start with Eddie, and then we actually are going to go down the line, if you guys don't mind. I'm just going to ask the question, what's one piece of advice you would give to students preparing to enter the dance profession?
One piece of advice.
I know. Just one. Just need to boil it down.
I'm gonna give a piece of advice that I learned too late in life. I should have learned it when I was here at this school. I would have been able to benefit things so much more. When I was at this school, there was a lot of creative people. And creative people have a tendency to lock horns. When I was at this school, there was a little bit of turbulence. And one of the mentors, one of the professors I had, was really brilliant. And he didn't get along very well with another professor. So I didn't work with that other professor. Meanwhile, Anna Sokolow came in and choreographed Dreams. She reset Dreams on the undergraduate. And I was one of the stronger males at the time in the department, and I refused to audition for Dreams because it was going to be rehearsed by the other faculty. I look back at that period and I lost a great opportunity to work with Anna Sokolow, but I also lost a great opportunity in working with that faculty person because that person happened to have a lot to offer too. You're going to come across a lot of different personalities in the world when you're involved in dance or any of the performing arts. They all have amazing gifts to offer you. Amazing. If that gift comes along with some kind of thing that's really hard to deal with, learn how to deal with it, swallow your pride, and really take the messages, ideas, and creativity that they have for you and utilize it in your own personal creations. Because that is one of the biggest downfalls. I ignored opportunities that would have been great opportunities just because I was a little bullheaded. So it's something that you need to look at yourself and realize that we're all human beings, we all have faults, and you have to overcome that and grow and work with the people who are offering to give you so much knowledge, so much information, so much creative opportunities, and that's probably my biggest advice.
I guess I would have to say, don't be afraid to take a break. Sometimes it is the best thing you can do because you come back with a fresh perspective, you're revitalized, and dance is not going anywhere. You know, sometimes we say, I quit, that's it. And then you say, oh, I wish I didn't say that because I don't really want to quit. The cool thing about dance is it doesn't care. Dance doesn't care. It's always there in so many different ways and opportunities. And sometimes it takes stepping away from it for a period of time to figure out, you know, how you need it in your life.
My piece of advice for anyone who's not going into academia, let's say as a professor, but if you are going to venture into choreographing or maybe being a performer, that in addition to being a dancer and having that knowledge is to also diversify your skills. I have a private practice. I'm a nationally certified personal trainer, and I used to work for a corporate gym, and I quit and started my own business. So I have a private practice that I bring in a lot of my knowledge that I learned from Brockport in terms of movement analysis and somatics, release technique, and having that private business has actually allowed me to choreograph and have time because I don't have to work from 9 to 5 earning a minimum wage. I can survive off of working 3 to 4 hours a day in New York City, which is pretty good. But it's only because I have this other skill that is very valuable to people. There's a lot of people that appreciate me having a dance background and having a slightly different or more sophisticated approach to training, which is, I call it awareness through movement. So yeah, I would say, you know, look into those things like your Pilates or your personal training or gyrotonics, or because those can actually allow you the freedom and the time to go to your auditions and take your classes. Because I'm telling you, I have a friend, I won't mention his name, but he's having a rough time working in retail for that minimum wage, and it's sucking up most of your day. And it's really hard to dance if that's where most of your time is. Yeah.
My advice to anyone starting their career in dance is say yes. Say yes to projects, even if you don't think they're that interesting. You never know who you're going to come in contact with. you're just starting out, let me tell you, the people that you are working with, they are going to be your biggest assets. You make a name for yourself as the person who's reliable, as the person, you know, who's going to show up, the person who is a pleasure to work with. Say yes. People will hire you, your name will get around. Say yes to teaching opportunities. It's going to make you a better teacher. It's going to make you understand your body better. It's going to make you better able to communicate. Say yes to performance opportunities, even if it's for 5 people. You're going to get 5 people that know your name. You're going to get 5 people that appreciate what you do. Maybe one of them will start looking you up online, you know. Say yes to outside opportunities. You know, when I was finishing the grad program here, Maura Keefe, I'm not certain if everybody in here knows who she is, but Maura Keefe was my advisor at the time, and she said, you know, Kristi, I think you should look at Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival and look into their video intern project. I'm like, I'm graduating with an MFA and I want to have a dance company. And she said, you know, I really think that you should be looking at this opportunity. I was like, ugh, $500 for a summer? Seriously? Like, I can't live off of that. That's crazy. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, you know, I took this camera and choreography class here that was offered like once that I said yes to, and it totally changed my perspective on dance making, and I started making dance films, and that became a whole thing, a whole aspect of my career. And I said, you know, I guess I really enjoyed that. I'm glad I said yes to that. Maybe I should say yes to this. And so I did. I said yes to it. I ended up developing a complementary skill set that, you know, for the first 1.5 to 2 years that I was out of grad school and not making money dancing, not making money, enough money teaching or choreographing, I was documenting dance for people. I was making a pretty good living, still being a part of the dance world. So you never know where saying yes is going to take you. It's going to introduce you to some amazing people, give you some amazing opportunities that might take you to some really shitty places, but at least you're going to know what you like and what you don't like at that point because you've experienced it. If you're just going to sit in your room and wait for that perfect opportunity to come along without saying yes, it might never get there.
Oh, advice to the new generation. I
Not too
know.
much
I
pressure.
feel like I want to lower my voice.
Can we get a spotlight?
I would say, well, aside from leave your ego at the door, aside from that, right, because that doesn't help anybody, I would say be flexible. Be flexible, both with your bodies, your minds, your time. Be flexible about the way you see yourself too, right? So be flexible about the things that you, similar to what Chris was saying, try things, right? So rather than just thinking, well, you know, this is the way I dance, and this is kind of how I am, and this is how I do my thing, right? Well, what if you try this thing, and then you can take some of that thing, add it to this thing, and you have a whole new thing, right? So certain skills from different dance techniques and disciplines will give you different things, right? African dance will give you a supple spine and quick feet, right? Jamaican dance will give you a percussive pelvis. Ballet will give you nice, long, extended distal limbs, right? But if you are able to borrow those things, I think it makes for a more holistic, well-rounded, more sensitive, more articulate dancer, and also makes you multilingual. And I think in this world today, we need to be multilingual with our bodies, with our thoughts, with our words, and I think finding a way to being multilingual as a dancer, I think, is really important. And I also think that it promotes just diversity and tolerance on our end, right?
Okay, I guess my advice would be a combination of everybody. Because I'm here like, I'm not in agreement. But really take advantage of all the opportunities. There's so much to offer. All the summer, Jacob's Pillow, American Dance Festival, you know, the different guest choreographers that come in here. Take all your classes. Make sure that classes are an integral part of what you do. Classes are going to shape you for the stage, those of you who want to perform. And I hope there are at least some people out there who want to perform. The classes are very important. They're going to help you physically become aware of your body, take care of yourself from the inside out, right? Eat well, drink lots of water, rest. Rest, sleep is very important, right? Take care of your feet. As dancers, we don't go home and say, oh, we're done for the day, we can just chill. And no, you're always constantly thinking about your body, what you put into it, how you treat it. And you know, because you're going to take care of your body, it is your instrument. When you go to audition, the first thing they look at is you. If you come in and you just look a mess, then, you know, what's that going to say, right? So take care of you, take care of your instrument. Make sure it's well versed, properly warmed, right? Somebody I look up to tremendously, Oprah Winfrey, in one of the many interviews she's given. You know, they said to her, you know, you're so lucky, all these opportunities. She said, no, I don't believe in luck. She said she believes in preparation meeting opportunity, right? So prepare yourselves for whatever it may be, right? If you're prepared physically, mentally, spiritually, and the opportunities there, ta-da, you know, you have put in the work beforehand, right? Some people see something, oh, I'm going to start to work now. No, if you put in the work beforehand, then everything will follow and your path will be right there. But work hard, believe in yourself, and take care of yourself.
I would say be a lifelong learner, and we hear that a lot, but it's so true. After you finish your undergraduate or your master's, continue to go to workshops, go to conferences. It's what rejuvenates me, and it's what keeps me current of what's going on. It's where I've made the best connections, and I think that's really, really important. Sometimes I have to pay for it out of my own pocket, and sometimes I'm writing grants to go places, and I suggest joining NDO and DAISY, Dance and the Child. I've met amazing people around the world. Travel. I've traveled more with my dance career than with my family. Or I take them with me now. But traveling is so important. So if you could do that. I was an exchange student here at Brockport. I took advantage of going to Middlesex Polytechnic and spent 6 months there. And it was hard to leave my friends here at Brockport, but it was a great, great experience with travel. And I'm constantly learning from my colleagues in every academic subject that they teach, but always continue to grow and just keep learning.
It's okay, no worries. So we ran out of time for questions from the audience, but the good news is that we are all going to be ushered into the hallway right outside Hartwell for the reception, so you guys can kind of meet and ask any of the panelists your questions then. And I just want to thank the panelists again. Thank you so much.